Hello everyone, my name is Sierra and this is Sierra the Book Addict. Welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be my January wrap-up. I'm so excited for this because I read 8 books in January, which is a huge number considering I only read I think 5 in December. And surprisingly enough, I had read like 3,000 pages for January, which I don't think I've done that good since like November. So that's very exciting for me personally. And this year is going to be like the year of big books, which I'll explain what that means in a little bit. But let's get started. So, if you don't know how I do my TBR sort of game, I have 2 lists, one with just standalones and one of series, and I usually pick between 4 to 6 from the singles and 1 to 2 of the series, just because I don't want to overwhelm myself. And I have on my phone I have a number generator, and that's how I kind of figure out what I'm going to read. So I picked quite a few good ones, and I'm actually surprised I only got, I think, 1 I did not finish, and that'll be in next month's video, hopefully. But yeah, let's talk about the ones I actually got to. So I started off the year with She Who Became the Sun. Oh, this was so fantastic, and I'm so happy that I started with that as my first book of the year. It was so good. If you don't know what She Who Became the Sun is by Shelley Parker Chan, it's about a young girl named Zhao or Zol. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce either one. And she is basically destined for nothingness, while her older brother is destined for greatness, but due to some issues and her brother's death, she basically becomes him by taking his name, and faking he's a boy, and going to a monastery and kind of becoming a monk. And this is during the time period of when the Mongolians are kind of taking over China. So we have a perspective which is from Zhao, or Zhou, as a Chinese monk, and then the perspective of a Mongolian general and their kind of placement in the story. And she has to deal with the monks, but also having to deal with the Mongol rule as a monk, but also she becomes sort of like a general for China to try and basically conquer the Mongols. And we have another character which we to see as a eunuch general from the Mongolian side. He's technically Chinese, but was enslaved by the Mongols, so he is technically a general for the prince, but he has some issues which kind of get resolved. There will be a second book. It is part of a series. It was really well done, and I've never read a book in this sort of time period frame, and especially with this kind of theme, because obviously it's a lot about identity and self-identity, and what does it mean to be part of another culture, and what does it mean to have to deal with the politics of being held against the will of a different culture, but also what it means to have to interact with the other culture in order to have your own freedom. And it was very, very beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It just didn't have that make my bubbly self happy, this was so amazing sort of book. But I really loved it, and I cannot wait to get my own copy because it was so good. Next I read was a historical fiction known as The Woman with the Blue Star by Pam Jenoff. And if you're wondering why I'm looking down at my books right here on my iPad, I'll try and figure out where to pop that up. But this is about the German invasion during World War II of Poland, and about a non-Jewish girl and a Jewish girl who become friends of World War II due to the Jewish girl having to hide in the sewers. And the non-Jewish girl discovering her and basically trying to help her become free of the sewers and to find a better life. And it was beautiful. It was very well done. I definitely have not read any historical fiction quite like it. It was very sad. I did not cry. Usually sometimes I do cry with these. But this one didn't have the tone in it, which usually makes me tear up. But I did mist up a little bit because it was a little hard to, read a little bit because, some of the descriptions that often are used in historical fiction definitely had tug at the heartstrings. I gave this 4 stars as well. I really enjoyed it. It was one of the better historical fictions I've read. Next, I read Becoming Wild: How Animal Cultures Raise Families, Create Beauty, and Achieve Peace by Girl Safina. Don't come for me. This was a nonfiction, first one I've read this year, and it was really, really good. It was very interesting because he compares different cultures like family culture dynamics with sperm whales, creating beauty through macaws, and achieving peace with chimpanzees. And it was really done beautifully. It was a rather interesting book if you're really into the science of zoology and stuff like that. I think you would enjoy it. I really liked it. This is the sort of non-fiction thing I like. It's, kind of study of animals. And so this was very informative, and it was very different than most non-fictions I've read on animals or things like that. I did not rate this one because after watching one of Ava from Pretty Purple Polka Dots, her channel, she discussed kind of why she doesn't rate non-fictions, because it's not fair to the author, obviously, that you rate something within their lives or their research. Like, oh, I didn't like it because this isn't this. So I am not going to be rating my non-fictions just because I understand what she was going for. Obviously, you shouldn't rate people's lives or research. It just doesn't seem fair for them. And you shouldn't judge a book like that in its sense. So, yeah. Next, I got was Grey Sister, which is the second book of the Book of the Ancestor by Mark Lawrence. Now, as I've said in my previous videos and on my Instagram account, I personally get these audiobooks from the library, I send them, and I don't buy them, so I don't support him in that way, because I know there is some issues, and I don't approve of them myself, but the books are really good. So by taking them out from the library, I don't feel like I'm supporting in that way. I feel like I'm supporting my local library, so yeah, so that's how I'm going to do with that. So this was the second book in the series. I'm not going to say too much, because obviously if you are ever wanting to read it, you're going to probably want to read it for yourself. I have me explain it, but basically Nona has to deal with next year of her class, but she also has to deal with a lot of things like more character death, trying to get revenge with Soul for stealing the ship heart, and kind of have to deal with the Emperor's sister, and dealing with another young lady who is high up in the status, and dealing with her cruelty against her and her friends. It was really enjoyable. I really liked it. Usually, for a second book in a series, I'm like, but this one was actually pretty good. So this was also 4 stars. And next, this is why I'm gonna say it's a big book year, because I've started Outlander. So me and a couple other friends on book Twitter have decided to read all 9 books in the Outlander series in 1 year. Yay. And since they're also super massive, we're trying to do one a month. But we'll see how that goes. I'm actually really proud that I got to book one. I loved it so much. I was like, okay, there's so much going on. Like, it's slowish, but you want it to be just because we have so much going on. I loved it. Just like, Claire is fantastic. Jamie is amazing. Just literally when it got to the part where he was taken to the English prison, I was like, okay, how can there possibly be 400 more pages? Like, what else could possibly happen? And so much more happened, and I was just like, holy shit, this book should have ended already. This is incredible. And so it was fantastic. Like, I'm so excited to continue on. I'm actually, in my next video, going to be talking about my TBR, and I'm going to tell you now, I've already started the second book, and it's just as good. Like, I'm having such a fun time. Sorry, I just wanted to bring something else up real quick. So if you would like to join me and my dear friends at reading the rest of Outlander, just for the shits and giggles of it, I'm going to give you my Twitter, where you can join. We're obviously in book 2. I'm having so much fun. And it was definitely different than what I would thought it would be, but that is just perfectly fine. Love that from me. So, one moment, let me pull up my Twitter. So, it is known as the at the Read Along 2, which is all in capitals. The reader, so capital C, capital R, and capital A, with the number 2. And come join us to finish reading Outlander. So much fun. So, I probably could give a better synopsis, but don't want to go too far, just because there's probably a lot of people that still haven't read it yet, like me. So next was a fun, well, it wasn't fun, well, it was fun, but it was a kind of random pick for me, and it is The Farm by Hector Abada Felicini, and he is a Argentinian writer. It was translated, and it is about a family from Argentina, and they're discussing of the family farm, and it is told in the perspective of all 3 children that are in their probably 50s now. Their mother just passed away. It's basically the brother discussing the history of his family and the farm. The oldest sister kind of talking about her old-fashionedness and her meaning towards the farm, and the youngest sister kind of talking about, you know, her perspective of her own siblings, but also her life, and how it kind of all revolved around this farm. It was a really interesting book, but it did kind of drag on a little bit. So if you don't mind lengthy and very detailed sort of books, you would probably really like this. I gave it 3 stars just because it did take a long time to read. Oh, I didn't mention I gave Outlander 5 stars, obviously, because, you know. But yeah, that was The Farm. It wasn't bad. It just got very, very slow, which kind of gave me a little bit of a reading slump. So the next book is a sequel, and that is The Band number 2. So this would be Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames. Anyway, this is Bloody Rose, which was super good, but I was a bit disappointed by it just because I loved Kings of the Wild, and I felt like that one had so much more meaning to me than Bloody Rose did. It just felt short, and I'm not sure why. Like, most of the characters were very, 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 very fun. There were some hardship. There was some very sad moments. But I'm glad we got to see some of the boys from the Kings of the Wild return. Even though there is one specific part, which I think you all, if you've read it, would know, broke my heart. I liked Tam as a character. Rose was very... I feel like we got Rose, but we also didn't get enough content of Rose. And since the story is Bloody Rose, I just feel like there should have been more of her perspective. But I do love the rest of the characters. I really thought they were very interesting. I love to say the word smurglings now, just because who doesn't want to say the word smurgling? Fantastic. So this only got me 4 stars just because it was not as lived up to as I wanted it to be with Kings of the Wild, but I still would love my own copy just because I want one. And I'm hoping that the 3rd book in the series, which I think is supposed to be taken after like 15 years or something after Bloody Rose, comes out soonish, hopefully next year, just because I would love a 3rd book, and I love the series so much. So yeah, 4 stars. And last but not least, I got the 2nd of the Malaxan series done. So Deadhouse Gates was interesting. You know, this whole series is just kind of, it's hard to describe. Like, there is so much happening. There's so many characters. The books are ginormous. I have to listen to the audiobook just because I have a hard time figuring out what is going on. This got 4 stars just because I gave the other one 4 stars as well. They're good. They're just not like I'm blown away. Just mostly I'm confused because there's so much happening. There are so many different characters. Obviously, you have some characters that continue on, some that die, some say they're going to be in prequels. It is just a mess. And there's so much, like, political background, war. You kind of lose track of what's kind of going on a little bit. And so, they're not like, oh my god, this is the most amazing series I've ever read. So the book, but they're interesting and intriguing. And so, it gets 4 stars. And I listened to it, I believe it was like a 32-hour audiobook. And I believe the next one, which is the 3rd book, it's like 40-something hours. So I feel like they're getting longer and longer each book. But that's okay. It's going to take a little bit extra time to read them. I don't think I'm going to get all 10 of them done within this year. But they should definitely be done by next year sometime. Hopefully within the first few months, but we'll see. But yeah, that was everything I read in January. So I didn't tell you, but She Who Became the Sun was a digital. So was The Woman with the Blue Star. I had the physical book from the library of Becoming Wild. I listened to Grey Sister as an audio. I read Outlander as a digital. I read The Farm as a physical. Bloody Rose as a digital. And Deadhouse Gates as an audio. So yeah, that's kind of how things have gone. So I hope everyone has a fantastic day. I hope you enjoyed this video. And I will see you all real soon. Bye.